Hey, what's going on? This is going to be a fantastic lunch and learn. Jesse Dale with Macro Missionary. And I would say the biggest frustration that I experience myself, that I see with clients, is when they are killing themselves and they're making what they feel are the right decisions. They're getting on that cardio. They're doing what needs to be done. And they're just not getting the scale weight drops that they're expected to. So I want to go over and put some perspective on this whole thing for you and use raw data to help create an oh wow moment and keep you on track. So let's dive into a few reasons why the scale is going to do some wacky things. So I'm going to use me. This is all my data here, and I am formulated at a very aggressive 2 pounds of fat loss per week. So that's very, very aggressive. So knowing the science and all that, my expectation is to lose 2 pounds per week. And it's like, that better happen. Because if it doesn't, I'm gonna get frustrated and wanna just go off track. Because that tends to be the mentality, right? Like, hey, if I'm following a process and it's not working, what am I doing this for? So let's dive in, all right? So I started out here week 1. This was part of our purpose-driven diet, the book we just released. So I thought I'd go through this. So I started out at 199, back here in week 1. Okay? And remember, I'm formulated for 2 pounds of fat loss per week. All right? Went through everything. My average weight for this week was 194.5. My median was 196. Now, down here, that says negative 9,170. And what that number represents is that's the amount of calories that I ate under what my body's needs are. Now, to lose 2 pounds of fat, I would need to eat under 7,000. So I was actually an overachiever. And I actually, to gauge that, I used my Fitbit. I did not take this thing off at all. So that's what I'm going by for the calories, in addition to our algorithms and everything. So is it perfect? No, but we don't live in a petri dish or a lab. So it's going to have to, for this example, be what the barometer that we're using. All right, so this should give me about just over 2.5 pounds of fat loss per week. All right, so let's go now into week 2. And by the way, I started adding, because you're like, well, if you're only formulated for 7,000 calorie deficit, why was it more? I started to run in the morning. So I added a little bit of activity. All right, so week two, all right, we're gonna see kind of my progressions. Now week 2, I hit that 2 pounds of fat loss, okay? This is like the honeymoon phase. The process is working. Everything is going great. Awesome, okay? Very, very motivating time, all right? One thing that I did notice is my total energy burned was 8,794, okay? So that's what I had in addition. And that's a little bit less than the week before. No big deal, because my ultimate goal is 7,000, and I still smashed that. And I'm seeing progressive results from what I was formulated to do. All good, sweet. We are rocking and rolling. Okay, we're gonna get into week 3. All right, whoa, week 3, I hit the 180s over here on Sunday. That's huge. Okay, very, very cool. Everything is going great. Now here you're seeing not as much weight loss as formulated. And another thing we're seeing is, wow, look at the energy expended. From here, almost 2,000 calories down from week 1, okay? So that's the first thing that I want to talk about, is heart rate adaptations and metabolic adaptations to your activity, okay? Now, I'm still way above formulation, so I'm doing good, but you'll notice that my body is becoming more and more efficient, because I never missed a morning. I ran, like back in the cold weather, the whole night. I ran every single morning, so my heart got stronger and stronger, increased its stroke volume. So my body's like, cool, you're now nice and efficient. We don't need to burn as much energy. So we're seeing that adaptation come into fruition there. Okay, so which is why activity isn't the greatest method for fat loss, because your body strengthens its heart and it gets in shape. Okay, but we're still going pretty good there. But that is one key takeaway, is that your body is going to get very efficient with your activity. All right. So then we hit week 4, and look, check it out. Things are rocking and rolling. Week 4, we had 2 days in the 180s, an all-time low of 188. I'm like, and I'm seeing it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so motivated. This is great. Average down to 191. Now, here's the thing: is you notice that here we had that initial drop, and then not such a big drop, and then definitely not really a big drop here at all. Okay, but if you look at, and this is where it's going to require a little bit of focus. If you look at where I started, 199, to where I am here, average of 191, that's exactly 2, 4, 6. That's exactly 8 pounds, exactly formulation. Okay, so now let's go when stuff hits the fan. All right. Oh, and before I go over that, I want to stress that weeks 1, 2, 3, and up until Saturday up until week 4, we were doing a sugar and alcohol fast with our church. So weeks 1, 2, 3, and majority of week 4, 0 sugar and 0 alcohol. All right, and everything is going as planned. We're good to go. All right, so now we get into week 5. Wake up at 198. Started at 199. Okay, what is going on? What happened there? This is number 2. The number 2 thing that can happen to you when you're in a caloric deficit but you're not losing as projection is when you make drastic changes. Drastic changes mean drastic changes. Well, what did I do? I went 4 weeks, we'll call it 4 weeks, with no processed sugar whatsoever and no alcohol. Well, we added that in, and it fit our distribution and everything, but we added that in copious amounts on Saturday, and the body's inflammatory response to that was just outrageous. I mean, the bloat, the water retention, just absolutely outrageous, okay? So you want to think, and this can happen if you add mass amounts of activity in it too. So it's not just changing the nutrients that you're taking in very, very drastically, okay? But it can also be adding like massive amounts of activity, like, hey, I'm going to do a 1,000 rep squat challenge or something. The inflammation from that can be massive. 8 pounds of water, it sounds kind of like a lot, but it's really not. If you think of 2 cups of water, measuring cups, that's a pound. I can sniff 2 cups of water, no problem. All right, so what you'll see at week 5, we normalized. Okay, so Tuesday we went back. All right, and then Wednesday kind of went up a little bit. And I had to guesstimate these because I was traveling. I did not have a scale, but just by going visually, okay, things got back on track. Okay, and then today 194 and then 190. So it's very important that when you're trying to assess if what you're doing is working, that you look at the big picture, because here particularly, and actually I want to point out here, check out the caloric expenditure, 5,840. So that was my total energy deficit. Because of the heart rate adaptations, I was actually missed my goal for week 5. So we've seen the total daily energy expenditure go down every single week. Well, that's going to happen. We talked earlier about metabolic adaptation. What also is going down? On average, my weight is going down. So there's less of my body to cart around. When I'm talking to you right now, I'm now a 190-pound person, depending on the morning, instead of a 200-pound person. So all of that has that compounding effect on your total daily energy expenditure. So it's really, really important that what you thought was a huge deficit before. Back on week 1, 9,170 calorie deficit. Well, man, that is just going to be motivating. You're going to see the fat flying off. And now on week 5, we're down to 5,840. Okay? So there's going to need to be some compensation for that. So the weight fluctuations, let's talk about that. Stress and inflammation. We already talked about the body's inflammatory response. So if you're kind of like, if you're into the scale or the scale freaks you out, I would not weigh myself the day after I've changed my nutrient intake a lot. So if your body's used to certain foods and then you just kind of throw like major curveballs, or you go from anti-inflammatory foods to extremely high inflammatory foods, I wouldn't weigh myself the next day. Yeah, that may not be a good idea if you care what the scale says. And then just stress in general, emotional stress and physical stress. So if you had a competition or a lacrosse tournament or even a big like blowout fight with whoever, I wouldn't weigh myself the next day just because of that body's inflammatory or that stress response. But the biggest thing that hopefully all this is teaching you is to look big picture, okay? Because there are so many times with these massive weight fluctuations that it would have been easy just to be like, forget this is stupid. But when you break it down, you look big picture, you're like, okay, I went from an anti-inflammatory diet to a very inflammatory diet. All right, there's going to be fluctuations there. Will your body adjust? Yes. Are you still losing fat? Yes. Does it look like it? No. Does the scale look like it? No. Okay, because you've made those massive changes. But if you're kind of looking right here and you're just looking at that daily scale number, it's very easy to get into forget it mode and just be like, well, let's just forget the whole thing. The whole process doesn't work. The whole process absolutely does work. And again, in closing, just being aware that particularly if you're doing cardio, particularly if you love to do cardio, like I said, I added in my run and then, I got good at it. Kind of. So now I do like a run to warm up. So now instead of 1 mile a day, I'm doing 2. My body's getting in better and better shape, and that's showing in my total daily energy expenditure. Okay, so very, very important that you keep that into play as well. So my deficit's getting less and less and less. So yeah, definitely make sure you're looking at your plan, big picture. And this is why lifestyle and flexible nutrition, this is why we preach, because I mean, if I were giving up insane foods like throughout this entire process, it probably wouldn't be worth it. I'll be honest. I mean, a set of abs or whatnot would not be worth it. But the fact that I was able to fit in foods, now maybe we shouldn't have gone from one extreme to the other. I mean, that wreaked havoc on the body going very anti-inflammatory diet to a pretty adding massive amounts of inflammatory foods, even though they were fit in. Okay, that's probably not the healthiest practice, okay? But there were foods that I love fit in throughout this entire process, and there always will be. So that's what keeps this whole thing sustainable for someone that does macronutrient-based nutrition. Is they're not like, whoa, man, I just gave up. Could you imagine like Monday at 199 and then 5 weeks later, 198? And not understanding all of the science and all the rationale that we just talked about, just seeing that, and you've given up all kinds of foods, who wouldn't throw the towel in? That would be like the pure definition of insanity, okay? But the fact that we were able to rationalize everything, and the fact that I was like, I really didn't give up anything that I absolutely love, made it all worthwhile, because I knew I had a positive expectation of what was going to happen after my body washed out or got through this inflammatory phase. So point being, keep fighting the good fight. Look at things big picture. Don't look at just, I say the 2 feet, between you and the scale, that's only 2 feet. Come up at 20,000 feet and really, really assess what's going on. And then lastly, I did want to throw this point out there, food variance. We were not dining out much on these 3 weeks at all. We just weren't dining out. Again, we were on the alcohol sugar fast. So here, weeks 4 and 5, we were traveling and we were dining out very frequently. Now, yeah, we made the best decisions we can. We stayed goal-based. We started implementing our date nights. But anytime that you're dining out, you're going to get a lot more food variance than if you're cooking in. So that's probably why you're seeing a little bit more quicker on that downward curve, in addition to everything else we talked about, is the food variance. So it just takes you just being complete honest with yourself, staying the course, staying process and oriented, staying goal driven, and you're absolutely going to get to where you want to get. All right, rock and roll. Hopefully this was beneficial for you. If you are in the market for nutritional coaching, we'd love to be part of that process. We'd love to help you out.